boys and girls. I am so happy to see you this morning. I hope you're having a really great day. We've got some good stories today. We've got two stories that are from two different countries. One of them is from one side of the world and the other's from the other, and I think that you're going to love them both. And we've got some silly songs, dinger play, and I think it's going to be a great one today. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. Our first story today is a very old story, and it's from another country. This is a story from Japan, and it's called Momotaro. Once there was an old man and an old woman living many hundreds of years ago. And they had no children of their own, but they always wished that they did. The old man was an honest woodcutter, and one day he had to go up into the hills to gather some wood. And while he was gone, the old woman went down to the river to wash their clothes. Well, while she was by the river, she saw the strangest thing. Floating in the water in front of her was a peach. Now, I know you've seen a peach before. They're not that big. They're maybe about the size of an apple. But this peach was big. Giant. And so, of course, the old woman fished it out of the river, and she thought that perhaps she would share it with her husband when he came back home from work. Well, when he got home, he saw the peach, and he was amazed too. And they took a knife to cut it so they could share it, but when they cut it, they saw something even more strange. Inside the peach was a crying, pink, healthy baby boy. Because he came from the peach, they decided to call him Momotaro, which means little peachling. And they raised him to be their very own son, and they were so proud of him. And over the years, he grew to be very brave and very strong. And they were all happy. And one day, he said to his mother and father, I am going to go to the island of the evil ogres. Those are big monsters like giants. And I am going to beat them, and I am going to carry away their treasures so that we can live in luxury. Before I go, will you make me a bag of your special millet dumplings? Millet is a kind of grain, like flour kind of. And so they did. They made him a bag of the best millet dumplings, and off he went. And as he traveled along on his way to the island, he saw a monkey, and the monkey said, Where are you going, little peachling? And he said, I am going to the island of the ogres so that I can take their treasures for my own. And the monkey said, What is that in your bag that I see there? And he said, These are millet dumplings that my mother made for me. And the monkey said, If you give me one, I will go with you and help you. And the boy knew that two can always do better than one, so he agreed. He gave the monkey one of his dumplings, and the two of them went off together. As they traveled along even farther, they came upon a pheasant. It's a kind of bird. And the bird said, Gah, gah, gah. Where are you going, little peachling? And the boy said, I'm going to the island of the ogres so that I can defeat them and take their treasures. And the pheasant said, All right then, but what is in the bag that you're carrying? And the boy said, These are millet dumplings, the very best. My mother made them. And the pheasant said, Well, if you give me one, I will go with you and help. And Momotaro thought to himself, well, 3 can do better than 2. And so he agreed. He gave the pheasant one of the dumplings. And then there were 3, the boy, the monkey, and the pheasant. As they traveled along a little further, they came across a dog. And the dog said, Ruff, ruff, ruff. Where are you off to, little peachling? And the boy said, I'm going to the island of the ogres so that I can defeat them and take their treasures for my own. And the dog said, Very well, but I smell something delicious in your bag. What do you have with you? And the boy said, These are millet dumplings that my mother has made for me. And the dog said, If you give me one, I shall come with you and help. And the boy thought to himself, well, 4 would be even better than 3. And so he gave the dog one of the dumplings. And then there were 4 of them, the boy, the monkey, the pheasant, and the dog. And after they had traveled a very long time, they came to the island, where there was a great gate and huge fence surrounding where the ogres lived. And the monkey scrambled up and over the fence. and the pheasant flew over the gate, and they opened it for him and let him in. And then the four of them were there against an entire army of ogres, and they fought. And little Peachling was just as brave and strong as a person could be, and eventually he defeated their king. And the king surrendered and said, "You win, you may have what you seek." And they brought out the treasures. And there was gold and jewels, of course, but there were also magical items, caps and cloaks that could make the person who wear them invisible, and chests of mysterious things that no one had ever seen before. And the boy, the monkey, the pheasant, and the dog took them home with them. And the old woman and the old man were so proud and so happy to see their son again. And they lived happily ever after. Our finger play today is about baby. Now, I know you guys aren't babies. You guys are big boys and girls, right? But maybe you remember what it was like when you were a baby, or maybe you've got a baby brother or sister. So we can pretend, and it's okay. I know you guys aren't really babies. It's all right anyway. Here we start. Can you make a ball? Here's a ball for baby, big and soft and round. Here is baby's hammer. See how he can pound. Here is baby's music. Clapping, clapping, so. Clap your hands. Here are baby's toy soldiers, marching in a row. Here is baby's trumpet. Toot, 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 toot. Here's the way that baby plays peekaboo. Here is his umbrella to keep our baby dry. And here is baby's cradle to rock a baby by. Let's do it one more time. Here's a ball for baby, big and soft and round. Here is baby's hammer. See how he can pound. Here is baby's music. Clapping, clapping, so. Here are baby's toy soldiers, marching in a row. Here is baby's trumpet. Toot, 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 toot. Here's the way that baby plays peekaboo. Here is his umbrella to keep our baby dry. And here is baby's cradle to rock a baby by. Good job. Our second story is also from another country. This one's from Norway. I bet that some of you here in Racine probably have some families that came from Norway a long time ago. This is the story of the boy who went to the north wind. Long time ago, there was an old woman, and she had one son who lived with her. And the old woman was poor and rather weak, and they didn't have very much. But one day she sent her son out to their barn to gather up some meal, some ground up grains, so that they could make their food from it. And the boy did as he was told, because he was an obedient and good boy, and he went out to the barn and he gathered up some grain in his hands. And as he went out of the barn, suddenly the north wind came along and began to blow. Can you make it sound like wind? Well, it blew the meal right out of the boy's hands. So he went back to the barn to try to get some more meal. And when he came out of the barn again, there was the north wind again, just blowing and blowing as hard as it could. Make the sound with me again. And of course that meal blew off as well. He went in for a third time, and I bet you know what happened when he came out. The north wind was there, blowing and blowing, and carried that meal away. And then the boy had nothing. There was nothing left in the barn. And he went and told his mother, and she was heartbroken. But the boy said, "I will make this better." And so he gathered his bag and he set off to find the north wind. And he had to walk a very long way, 2 days, before he finally came to the north wind's house. And when he was there, he knocked hard on the door. And the north wind answered, "Who are you?" And the boy said, "You don't know me, but you came by my land and you blew away my meal, and now I want it back." And the north wind said, "I apologize. I don't remember doing that. I'm afraid I have no meal to give you. But I am sorry. And so in apology, I will give you this cloth. This is a magic cloth. When you're hungry, all you have to do is say, 'Cloth, spread yourself.' and it will produce all manner of good food for you." And the boy thanked the North Wind and headed back home. But it was getting late, and so he had to stop at an inn, like a hotel, on his way back. And while he was eating his dinner at the inn, he happened to mention to the person eating next to him what had gone on that day. And then he went to his room to sleep. But the innkeeper, who was not at all an honest man, had been listening. And while the boy was sleeping, the innkeeper took a cloth that looked like the one the boy had and went into the boy's room and took away the magic cloth and left behind an ordinary cloth. In the morning, the boy woke up and he went home to his mother and he said, "Look, mother, look!" And he put the cloth on the table and he said, "Cloth, spread yourself." But nothing happened. And then there was nothing for it but for him to go all the way back to North Wind. And he knocked on the door again and he said, "The cloth that you said was magical did nothing at all." The North Wind said, "I apologize. I have no idea what went wrong, but here, instead, I will give you this ram, this big male sheep with horns. It's a magical ram. All you have to do is say, 'Ram, make money,' and he will cough out gold coins until you tell him to stop." And the boy thanked the North Wind and took the ram with him. And as he came along, he had to stop at the same inn to sleep because it was getting dark. And he put the ram in his room. And the innkeeper, who'd been watching, had an idea that perhaps things were not all what they seemed with this as well. And he spied on the boy. When the boy was ready to pay for his meal that night, he went to the ram and said, "Ram, make money." And the ram coughed out a number of gold coins. And the innkeeper said, "This is a ram that I would like to keep for myself." And so that night when the boy was asleep, the innkeeper went to the boy's room with another ram and replaced and took the magic ram, the gold coughing ram, with him. The next morning, the boy took the ram with him and went home to his mother. And he said, "Watch, Mom. Ram, make money." The ram didn't do anything at all. The boy went back to the North Wind. And he said, "I don't know what is going on here. That ram only coughed out gold once, and then it refused to do anything at all." North Wind said, "I'm very, very sorry. I really have nothing left to give you, though. All I have is this stick. This stick here. And if you say, 'Stick, beat on,' the stick will rise up and start beating everyone around it until you say, 'Stick, stick, stop.'" The boy said, "I'm not sure what use I'll have for that, but if that's all you have, then that is what I'll take." And he took the stick with him back to the room. Now, a number of days had passed over the course of this story, and the boy was beginning to be suspicious because, of course, the ram had worked perfectly fine at the inn before he had gone to sleep. And so that night, as he lay in his room, he made sure to put the stick in a very special place so it was obvious that it was important. And the innkeeper, watching, didn't know what the stick was about, but since the boy had stopped there twice before with 2 magical items, he was certain that the stick also had to be magical. And so he found a stick that looked like that one, and he crept into the room. But the boy was lying there secretly awake. And when he saw the innkeeper creeping into his room, he sat up and said, "Stick, beat on!" And the stick started to beat the innkeeper over the head and on the bottom until the innkeeper cried, "Enough, enough, stop, please." And the boy said, "Stick, stick, stop." And the innkeeper was so embarrassed and guilty at having been caught, and so afraid that the boy would have the stick beat him again, that he gave the boy back his cloth and the ram. And the boy took the stick and the cloth and the ram home to his mother, and they were never hungry again. I have a silly song for us to sing together today. It's called "I Met a Bear," and it's an echo song. So I'll sing a part and then you'll sing it back to me. And it goes like this. I'll sing "The Other Day" and you'll sing back "The Other Day." And then I'll sing "I Met a Bear" And then you'll sing back, right, I met a bear. And it goes on from there. I think you got it. This will be fun. You'll see. The other day, I met a bear, a great big bear, away up there. The other day, I met a bear, a great big bear, away up there. He looked at me, I looked at him. He sized up me, I sized up him. He looked at me, I looked at him. He sized up me, I sized up him. He said to me, why don't you run? I see you don't have any gun. He said to me, why don't you run? I see you don't have any gun. And so I ran away from there, but right behind me was that bear. And so I ran away from there, but right behind me was that bear. Ahead of me there was a tree, a great big tree, oh glory be. Ahead of me there was a tree, a great big tree, oh glory be. The nearest branch was 10 feet up, so I thought I'd jump and trust my luck. The nearest branch was 10 feet up, so I thought I'd jump and trust my luck. And so I jumped up in the air, but I missed that branch way up there. And so I jumped into the air, but I missed that branch way up there. Now don't you fret and don't you frown, 'cause I caught that branch on the way back down. Now don't you fret and don't you frown, 'cause I caught that branch on the way back down. This is the end, there ain't no more, unless I meet that bear once more. This is the end, there ain't no more, unless I meet that bear once more. Well, I hope you enjoyed our story time today. We had some really good fun stories, didn't we? I hope you guys are keeping up with your summer reading and doing all the other fun activities we have going on with the library. And I will see you next week, I hope. You ready to get a big stretch in? All right, let's see every one of you reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head. And now your knees. Up to your shoulders, like this, you see. Reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. Bye-bye.